I waited 3 days after I found the receipt. It was folded once carefully as if it deserved privacy. It had slipped from the pocket of a coat she rarely wore anymore, the kind of oversight that only happens when someone stops being careful because they think the danger is past. I remember standing in the hallway with the paper between my fingers, feeling the strange weightlessness that comes right before your life splits into a before and an after. 3 days. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because knowing and acting are two very different kinds of pain. For those 3 days, I pretended nothing was wrong. Or maybe it's more honest to say I pretended everything was normal, which is harder. I slept on the couch, blaming a sore back, a late night, anything that didn't require explanation. I kept the lights on in the living room until she fell asleep, just to hear the house sound occupied. A quiet home as a way of amplifying thoughts you're not ready to have. I let the routine continue because routine feels like safety when your footing is gone. Coffee in the morning, the low hum of the dishwasher, the same throw pillow folded over the arm of the couch. I watched her move through the space like she always had, confident, unburdened, unafraid of being seen. And I watched her the way you watch a stranger in a movie leaning forward, desperate to know if they'll do the thing you already know they will. She kissed me on the cheek once during those days. A light, absent-minded peck, the kind you give someone you assume will always be there. My body reacted before my mind did, flinching slightly, like it had learned a language my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I didn't confront her because I needed time, not to cool down, but to understand what I was feeling. Anger would have been easier. Rage has momentum. It carries you forward. What I felt instead was a hollowing out, like someone had scooped the center of me clean and left the shell intact enough to function. On the 4th day, she invited our friends over. She called it a casual dinner, which in her language meant candles, music carefully loud enough to feel intentional, and a menu she practiced in her head all day. It was to celebrate a work win, another small victory in a career she'd been sprinting through lately, collecting praise and late nights and distance along the way. She was radiant that evening. That's the word that keeps coming back to me, radiant, like someone who had nothing to hide. She laughed louder than usual, practicing the version of herself she saved for company. She twirled a fork between her fingers as she talked, gesturing with confidence, owning the room. There was no crack in her performance, no sign of guilt leaking through the scenes. I showed up with a bottle of cheap wine and a smile that felt like it was made of glass. The kind that looks fine until the smallest pressure shatters it. I let her host. I let her glow. I let everyone drink. Our friends filled the apartment with noise and warmth, with stories I'd heard before and inside jokes that used to feel like home. I played my role well. I nodded at the right moments. I laughed when the timing demanded it. A few people asked if I was okay, said I seemed tired. I told them work had been heavy. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Dinner passed. Plates were cleared. The mood softened the way it always does when people are full and a little buzzed, when guards are down and expectations are low. That's when I stood. I raised my glass and smiled. I just want to make a quick toast, I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. I talked about honesty, about how fragile trust is, how it's built quietly over years and can disappear in an instant if you're not careful. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I didn't even look at her directly at first. I spoke like someone giving advice, like someone reflecting on a lesson learned the hard way. Then I reached for the photo album. I put it together that morning, hand steady, mind distant. 5 years of our lives bound in cheap leather and plastic sleeves. Birthdays, vacations, smiling faces captured mid-laugh. All the moments that look solid from the outside. The kind of images people point to and say, "See?" They were happy. I passed it around the table. At first, people smiled politely, flipping pages, reminiscing aloud. "Oh, I remember this trip. You two look so good here." That was the hardest part, watching them celebrate something that no longer existed. Then they reached the middle. Tucked between the pages were 2 receipts. A restaurant neither of us had been to together. A date circled in ink. A time that didn't match any story she'd ever told me. There was a napkin, too, folded carefully. With handwriting I recognized instantly. The same loops and slants I'd seen on notes stuck to the fridge. The same hand that had written "Love you" 1,000 times. And then the screenshot. A text thread she thought she'd deleted, saved to my phone like evidence from a crime scene. I didn't explain. I didn't have to. I let the room read it the way you read a menu, quietly, privately, absorbing choices you didn't know you were about to make. The air changed. Conversation stalled. Someone cleared their throat. Another person set the album down like it might burn them. I watched her face. Color drained slowly, as if someone were adjusting the saturation on a screen. Her smile froze, then collapsed, then disappeared entirely. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for something, an ally, an escape, a version of this night where she was still in control. What settled over her was the kind of horror you only see in films, when a character realizes the truth is unavoidable and public and permanent. She didn't say a word. She stood up, grabbed her coat, and left before anyone could ask her a single question. The door closed softly behind her. That felt important somehow. Our friends stayed. Not long, but long enough. They said the things people say in moments like that. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Call me if you need anything." I let them mean it. I didn't correct them or add context or ask for sides to be taken. The truth was already sitting on the table between empty plates and half-finished glasses of wine. When the apartment finally emptied, I sat alone on the couch, the same one I'd been sleeping on for days, and listened to the silence I'd been avoiding. It was louder than I expected. The next morning, I filed for separation. I changed the passwords to the accounts we shared: email, banking, streaming services. Each reset felt both petty and necessary, like closing doors in a hallway you no longer plan to walk down. I packed a bag with the things that were unmistakably mine. Clothes, a book I've been meaning to finish. The framed photo of my parents that never quite fit with her aesthetic. I didn't post what happened on social media. I didn't send the screenshots to her family. I didn't need to. The album did more damage than any argument ever could. It didn't just expose what she'd done. It dismantled the story she'd been telling about us. It forced everyone to read the ending she'd been hiding, without me having to narrate a single ugly detail. For a while, that felt like victory. But revenge is a short-lived thing. It burns hot and fast, then leaves you cold in places you didn't know existed. A week later, I noticed how quiet the apartment was at night. Too quiet. My hands didn't know what to do with themselves. There was no one to text mundane updates to, no shared screen glow while we pretended to watch the same show. I realized I'd traded one kind of loneliness for another, and this one didn't come with a familiar shape. That's when the doubts crept in. Not about leaving. I never questioned that, but about the way I left. about whether I crossed some invisible line, about whether dignity and cruelty can sometimes wear the same face. I tell myself the point wasn't to make her hurt as much as I did. It was to make her see, to hold up a mirror she'd been avoiding and force her to look at the version of herself she'd been editing out of her own story. If she learns anything from it, maybe she stopped breaking people the way she broke me. Maybe the next time she feels the itch to lie, she'll remember a room full of friends going silent, an album closing with a soft final sound. And if she doesn't learn, if she rewrites the story again and casts herself as the victim, that is no longer my burden to carry. I walked away with the truth, and my dignity folded neatly into the bag I took when I left. Sometimes that has to be enough.